The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now, ladies and gentlemen,
You're now about to witness the truth.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. It is Thursday night, August 18, 2016. Thanks so much for joining us. You could have been anywhere in the world today, but you decided to spend some time with us, and I greatly appreciate it. It's an inside joke, folks. I'm sorry. I have people in the studio with me now, and so, things are a lot crazier. But anyway, okay, so a lot to cover. Before I do that, I always want to thank my patrons. I believe I already thanked Robin, but if I didn't, Robin, thank you so much for being a patron. Lee, I thank you for doubling your, almost tripling your pledge. Thank you so much. And thanks to Wayne, who did likewise. All of you guys out there who are supporting the show on this level, we greatly appreciate it. We have a new goal set. We've decided that we are going to, and by we, I guess I mean me and whoever is going to come and be in on Fridays with me. So most likely me. We're going to do a Friday show for patrons only, just as a way of saying, hey, you guys are so important to what we do that I'm going to do a Friday show. It won't be a live show, because I do need to spend some time with my family at some point during the week, but it will be a show that I would record on Friday morning and put it out so it's nice and fresh content for you to consume. And that's for patrons, and you can become a patron for like $3 a month. That's a coffee, man. I think at this point I've earned a coffee from at least every listener out there at a minimum. Like if you saw me in real life, you would buy me a drink. Most people would. I mean, it's just good common courtesy. I'd buy you a drink. So you could join the conversations tonight, 857-600-0518. We've got a lot of ground to cover and not a lot of time to cover it in. So I may have some of this spill over into the after show. Last night's after show was really fun for me. We talked about the idea of rejecting capitalism, and what does that really mean? In so much as you could even consider rejecting capitalism, and it ended up being more about accepting the idea of the public good or public goods and the public option. So it's a great bit. So if you're a patron and you're already supporting the show, just go over to Patreon and listen to last night's show, after show. And of course, for everyone who's not a patron, we appreciate you just as much, man. We love you guys. Thank you for all the support that you give just by liking, sharing, and subscribing. That's why I'm out here every single night, Monday through Thursday, to make sure that I can continue to honor you. And you guys are here to be with me. So I appreciate your time. Enough talking. Yeah, so I can't start with the story of the little boy from Aleppo. That's the very first image I have in my computer. I can't really start there yet. So let's start with the Green Party debate. I think that's going town hall. That's going to be the best place for me to start. And I've got a couple of clips, some of which are nice and trimmed and ready to go. Some of them are not. So it may be a little rough here going. But so last night during the live show, there was the Green Party town hall. And I fully expected to be talking to like 5 people last night, but we still had great turnout. I mean, a couple of hundred people were listening live, which is good considering most of everyone is at the town hall. And it was a good town hall. I got a chance to watch it after the fact. If you've been listening, I finally admitted to the audience that I'm supporting Jill Stein and Baraka. I'm supporting them for different reasons than most people. I'm supporting them because I think the Libertarian Party and the Green Party should break the 5% threshold this year. I really want them to, which will put them in a stronger position for 2020. But because I think more options is better for democracy. That's why I'm supporting them. But they showed last night that they're actually having some pretty decent policy conversations. So Let me play a couple of clips and we'll discuss them as they come up. Here's the first clip from last night.
Baraka, what is it that is motivating your interest in this election? What is your message to the voters?
My motivation is that this is a critical moment that we have an opportunity to do something really different. I mean, I joined this ticket because I believe in Jill Stein. I believe in this party. The Green Party is the only vehicle we have right now that can offer a real alternative. You know, people are not ready to accept the notion that we have to be held hostage to these two elite parties. People are willing to gamble with the possibility that we can really build something new and different. So I think in 2016, we have this kind of historic opportunity. As Dr. Stein said, you know, my whole life has been about building alternative power. It's about speaking truth to power. It's about understanding that it is the people themselves that have the possibility to transform their conditions and transform themselves. So that's my motivation too, after all these years, to step into this electoral process, to be subjected to the kinds of of dirty politics involved in this, because I really believe that at this moment we have a real possibility of moving forward collectively in a new way.
Okay, cool. Nice clip from, I can never pronounce his first name, Juma Baraka, I believe is that way you pronounce his first name. Good clip. Making his pitch as to why this is a good moment for people to make, because people are making, 50% of people, I believe, is the number that don't identify with a particular political party. So it makes sense, right? This is a time for a third party and a fourth party. So, yeah, I think he's making the case here, and I think he is a, you know, all right, we'll keep going. Here's Jill Stein. This is the one I actually wanted to start with. Here's Jill Stein. Let's listen in.
So the unique thing about the Green Party is that we are the one national party that is not corrupted by corporate money, by lobbyist money, or by super PACs. So we have the unique ability to actually stand up for what it is that the American people want, what everyday people want. That is, we have a jobs emergency, and we call for an emergency jobs program that will actually solve the emergency of climate change that we are seeing in the floods and the fires and the heat waves across this country that are so painful to watch right now. This is what the future looks like if we don't stand up and start doing something about it. We're the one party that's actually calling for canceling student debt and bailing out a generation of young people like we bailed out the bankers on Wall Street. We can do that for this generation and unleash them to be the stimulus package of our dreams and make higher education free and health care as a human right and create a welcoming path to citizenship, end police violence, and a foreign policy that's based on international law, human rights, and economic justice, not on military and economic domination, which is blowing back at us so catastrophically. So, in short, we're standing up for everyday people and an America and a future that works for all of us.
You know, I think that was a great clip. She, in about a minute and 30 seconds, defined what's different about the Green Party than every other party. Yeah, cool clip. You guys are gonna unfollow me tonight. I don't know. I'm trying to speak. I liked it. It was good. I'm glad they got that exposure. I think they need more exposure. I think they're better on policy than anyone who's talking right now. I don't think there's any conversations about policy going on. Partly due to the ridiculousness of Donald Trump. That you have the Democratic Party basically just slinging mud, just like Trump. I mean, it's just kind of a clown show across the board. So from that perspective, it's really good to hear a policy light conversation. And I say policy light because these are positions. They're not quite yet policies. This is what they want. They're not really saying how they're going to get there. And the reason I said most of you might unfollow me tonight is because I'm just tired of people telling me what they want to do. I just want somebody to tell me how the hell they're going to get us there. That's really where I am. So that's kind of why I'm like, I'm not as excited about last night's town hall as everyone else. I did like it. I am supporting them. I am glad they got it. I think there's, again, I'll say it again, I think that they're doing a great job bringing policy-oriented conversations to the table. I'm just still more interested in how they're going to get there. But let's keep listening in. Now, this next clip is the clip that I think is the most interesting out of everything last night, because she said something that I wasn't even aware of. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot she could say that I'm not aware of, but I was not aware, and I think most people were not aware of the extent of America. Let's call it America's empire, right? Let's let her describe it. Here you go, Dr. Stein.
We now have somewhere between 700 or 800 or even more military bases around the world. Do you know how many military bases all other countries combined have? About 30. There's something really wrong with this picture. Do you know? Do you know how much of our budget actually goes to maintaining this bloated and dangerous military budget? 54% of our discretionary budget, which is about half of your income tax, is going to this failed, catastrophic policy of regime change.
But I'm just trying.
Okay, so I think she misspoke at the end. It's not that money's not going to regime change, which is in most instances a failed policy. It's going to our empire abroad, projecting our global hegemony, right? Our hegemony, depending on potato, who you speak to. It's going to power projection and to make sure that we have a presence in different regions that our Defense Department and our leaders think we should have a presence in. So not so much to regime change, but it was just, that's kind of a minute point. The bigger point is she's dead ass right about us having 800 bases abroad. And I had a graphic on your screen, and I'm going to bring it back up on your screen. This is from Politico, who actually reported on this last year. And if you go to the article in Politico, they confirmed there's 800 bases. A great majority are in Europe, a large concentration in Italy, and there's a great number of bases in Japan and the South China Sea region. And then you see there are bases that are scattered through Africa. We have 800 bases abroad compared to 30 bases from every other nation state. That, my friends, what we're looking at here is global hegemony. Depending on who you talk to, it's empire. Now, Cuomo asked the question that I think is the real question at hand. Are they going to close it? Are they going to close all of them? And I guess this is where my, contrarian attitude comes in with the Green Party, because they're speaking my language. But if they got in power, what are they going to actually do to affect those things that they're speaking my language on? So I see this graphic and it does look like empire. And part of me is like, I understand this power projection. I look at it, I see it. It makes sense to me because of just my background, what I've studied and international relations. I'm a realist, and that realism comes into great tension with my idealism, right? So I'm always at war within myself about war and peace, right? That's just my personal struggle. So when I see this graphic that's on my screen behind me, I'm like, it makes sense. And then in the same breath, I'm like, why are we building such a vast empire across the entire globe that is not only detrimental to some of the regions that they're actually located, but it's also detrimental to our domestic policy, and in that it absorbs, I believe she said, 54% of our discretionary budget. Or was it 16% of our discretionary budget, 54% of our discretionary budget. So it absorbs a huge amount of our resources to maintain this empire abroad. But still, Cuomo had the right question. Are we going to shut it down, or are we pointing it out for the purposes that it really speaks to people like you and me? And that's where I got, guys, that's where I am right now. I'm sorry. I know it is, I know people would want me to kind of just speak positively of the Green Party, but I have to just call it the way I see it. What are they going to actually do to accomplish these things? Mainly because, not just because I don't think that they have the plans, because they probably do have some plans, but the real question is politically, how would they accomplish it in the environment that we currently have that is designed and built to support this empire abroad, politically and economically? There are people who have their political futures determined by sustaining these bases abroad. And then there are people who have their entire economic framework. Every penny they make is dependent on military spending. So when you have that, I mean, the long and short of it is the military industrial complex, right, that Eisenhower spoke about. So when you have that has been entrenched in the American system for so long, we can debate about whether or not there should be such an empire or not. We can have that fun debate, right? It's a great debate to have. I think it's a meaningful debate to have. But the bottom line is, if we're talking about getting rid of it, I don't know. What do you think? Do you think, let me ask it as a question, right? Before you guys, all come after me. Do you think that anybody, I don't care who, Stein, Sanders, anybody could actually undo the last, how many decades of this militarism? Considering it takes a lot more than just your good intentions to undo generations of calculation and wealth generation, right? They've been planning and building this and generating wealth off of this for generations. And we think we can change it with our good intentions and the fact that we want to change it. Because here's the last thing I'll say about it. And this is why I feel I'm still voting for them. I'm going to support them. I think they did a brilliant job last night. But the reality of it is that unless you address the structural problems, not just the structural problems in America, but the global structural problems, the reasons on top of, right? So on top of the financial gains and the military industrial complex, there are some structural forces that dictates that we have to have a global presence. Now, do we need the global presence to the extent that we have it? That's the argument to have. But anyone who says that we do not need a global presence, just in the regions that are the most troubled, in the regions that are trouble in the future, in the regions that are destabilized, anyone who's going to say that we should have any presence there really is not ready to address the global structural problems that we have. And I know a lot of people in my audience in particular are going to say, yeah, but a lot of those structural problems were caused by America. That's not true. The structural problems speak to the condition that causes the instability in the first place, right? If you want to talk about America's responsibility for specific destabilized regions and specific conflicts, absolutely. If you want to talk about our military industrial complex, the fact that we have an economic investment in these in making weapons and building bases and maintaining those bases, absolutely. But are you going to address the fact that if we withdrew completely, another global hegemon would fill the void? And if another global hegemon fills the void, then it may very well require for us to go right back to where we came from. So to simply say we want to end the American empire or contract the American empire, like, one, politically, how are you going to get it done? But then two, if you actually did it, Are you prepared for the global? Are you prepared for how the cards will fall? Because how the cards may fall may actually be an existential threat to our security. And in a lot of our conversations on the progressive left, I don't really hear people addressing that fundamental underlying problem. Do we need the 800 bases? Probably not. But are we going to get rid of all of them? You would be insane to do so. But we never really have the question of where is the proper balance for us to not be engaged in empire building, but for also for us not to be negligent in our best interest and for the interest of some of the regions, right? So that's a big one that I unpacked, but I just thought it was fascinating that she brought that up out of all of the debates, all the town halls, all the conversations. I mean, no one has brought up just how vast our global reach has become and how expensive that global reach has become. The next question is, what is the proper balance? And if it is a massive contraction of our global presence, how are you going to get it done politically? Once I hear people talk about that, then I'm going to start wearing people's T-shirts and cheering for them. But so far in this election, nobody is talking substantive. Like, I have people actually arguing with me today about how great Donald Trump's speech to the black community was last night. And I'm like, were you listening at all? Because all he gave were platitudes and generalizations and really nothing. It was empty. It was a vapor of nothingness. And people, black people, were saying, this was a great speech. We need to give him a chance. And I'm like, the last person that I accepted these platitudes from was Barack Obama in 2008. I am not interested in platitudes from Clinton, from Trump, or from Stein. It's time for us to have a serious conversation about actual policy proposals and how you plan to accomplish and the pros and cons of what you plan to accomplish and the timeline that you plan to accomplish it in. And I haven't seen that yet in this conversation, but I think they got the closest that I've seen so far. So that's not everything, but it's not nothing. All right, so I want your opinion. 857-600-0518. What did you think about the Green Party? I have a couple of more clips here. What did you think about them? Caller, you're live on the air. What is your name, comment, and or question?
Hey, Ben, it's Bryce. How's everything?
How's it going, Bryce? What's on your mind?
Doing good. Of course, I do support Joe Stein myself. I don't know if I'm able to vote for her because I'm in Philadelphia, but I do support her. I do believe she'll be a good candidate. I know there's some progressives that don't believe it, like Tom Marvin.
I forgot to talk about that. Yeah, thanks for the reminder. Go ahead.
And I got you. And that's my point. I do got love for Tom, but I guess you feel like some of our policies might not work, or I don't really have a chance. And I think some progressives are so afraid of what Trump could do as president. See, they feel like, well, Hillary's the only option. Maybe we can push it to the left more. Yeah. And I feel like, I don't know. I don't think that's a wise mindset to have. Like, I know Trump will be a disaster. We know that. There's no fair enough in this reality. Yep. But Hillary, it's not going to be the best. It'll be the best like that. It'll be the status quo. Mm-hmm. And we know Hillary not going to do the crazy stuff like Trump would do on some levels.
Well, it depends on what you consider crazy.
Well, Hillary will probably do some very messed up international stuff. Trump will do stuff international and in America. So it's like a different thing. But we'll see how it goes. But definitely Joe Stein.
All right, man. Thanks for that call. 857-600-0518. If you want to join the conversation, caller, you're live on the air. What is your name, comment, and or question? This is you. You're live on the air. Name, comment, and or question.
Yes, sorry, Scotty. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you, man. What's on your mind?
Not much. I watched the Green Party town hall, and it was pretty good. I thought that their answers were great. I think General Baraka really came off strong. Like, you know, especially his points about empire, and of course, it was a nice touch to, you know, shout out Fannie Hamer, which a lot of people I looked on Twitter were happy about that.
Yeah.
I think the whole thing about, and I think this is a good criticism that you're giving. I think it's just that Jill, in some way, had to say that, and I think she believes that we should close the bases. But a lot of people in the anti-war left believe that, listen, like, sooner or later we should get rid of this whole military-industrial complex as a whole. And I understand that line of thinking, because for us, it's a debate that we should have. But for the people that are suffering because of it, it's life or death. So... And, you know, that conversation really needs to be had. And it's not being had. And so when she said that on television, and, you know, they're thinking this is the highlight of the Green Party since Ralph Nader. We may never get on this stage again. So for us to say everything that we had to say, you know,
she got it in, man.
You got nothing to lose.
Yeah. Now, in all fairness, and then thank you for saying like that, right? So in fairness to the opportunity last night, I don't think they could have done much better, right? I think they delivered exactly what they needed to deliver for the time allocated. I don't think they, you know, everything that I want from them is not something that they should have tried to give last night, right? To be fair to them, what they gave last night was about as much as you can consume in an hour block on national television, right? So yeah, I agree with you in that perspective. I definitely agree. But in terms of the next steps, you know, there's a lot of us out here who want the substance and the strategy so that we can have more than the talking points. Last night was about delivering your talking points about what you represent, who you are, what you want to do. Boom, 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 boom. And in that respect, I think I'd have to give them like a 9.9 out of 10. And only reason I won't give them a 10 is because I'm a contrarian asshole. But anyway, thanks for the call, man. I'm going to grab a couple other callers here. 857-600-0518 to join the conversation. What did you think about the Green Party town hall? And actually, to something Scotty said before I take this caller, I want to make sure that we delineate the difference here, right? So there are people who are suffering because of the American military industrial complex, right? We have such an excess of weapons that we can sell them to people who are able to, you know, blow up the Doctors Without Borders in Yemen, right? And people are suffering because of it. However, the bases that are abroad, right? And there is suffering. I'm not saying that there's nothing bad about our bases abroad, but those regions, you know, particularly like in Europe and in Japan, those regions are pretty stable, very, very stable. Part of the stability came, at least initially, because of our presence. So the question of, you know, the good or the bad that it does, I think that's a question that we have to have. That's a debate that we should have in terms of the bases, in terms of the general military industrial complex and weapons sales and our responsibility and our imprint in the region based on our weapons that are being dropped. That is definitely something that is a life or death situation for so many people that we are definitely, I believe, responsible for. 857-600-0518. An extension of that, I want to pull up, and actually, before I do that, I'll take this caller. Last caller on the Green Party. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Hey, man, this is Yaki.
Hey, how's it going, man?
It's going well. I love this question that you proposed. When you look at it, I understand you bring up some really good points about, are we really going to shut down all the bases? Even she said that we're not going to shut down all the bases. But when you truly look at it, we do not need this. And I believe that the president, as commander-in-chief, can do executive orders and move money around in such a way that the bases would have to close.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that there is a way to do it single-handedly, actually, and it's not, you don't even have to go through Congress necessarily.
Right.
Of course, it would be easier to go through Congress, but it is possible to do it without Congress in the structure that we're in.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. That's the only point I wanted to make. Because
Oh,
how are
okay.
they going to be able
Yeah.
to pull this off?
No, I think
And
that's a
that was
good
the question
point.
that you,
Mainly from the political fallout around it. Even so even if he or she does it by executive order, there's so much political fallout around that would pretty much ensure they won't have a second term. Right. So it's obviously something they would have to do in a second term. And then if they do it, then that pretty much ensures that they might get a second term, but their party is going to lose in that after the 8-year term. So there's such a huge political machine around protecting it. But the distinction that you make is absolutely true. Right. As the commander in chief, control of the armed forces, control over the Department of Defense and how they operate to as much as that individual president gets involved in that, they could, technically contract the bases without having to get congressional approval, unless it depends on how the manner in which that particular base was initiated and installed and everything. So I'm sure there's some exception out of 800 bases. I'm sure there's some exception that there's a base somewhere that he wouldn't be able to close. He or she would not be able to close unilaterally. But your statement still stands very true. Thanks for the call, man. 857-600-0518. All right. I think we can talk about this story now. You can't kind of run into this. This story really bothered me this morning. I'm putting on the screen a picture of a 5-year-old Syrian child who was last night rescued from his home. He was pulled from the rubble after his home was hit by an airstrike. He was with his mother, his father, his sister, and brother. Amazingly, all of them survived. But the young boy's name is Omran, and it is a miracle that they survived. But the picture itself really puts it in context in terms of what war really looks like. And the truth of the matter is, this is something that happens probably multiple times every day. And I saw a tweet earlier today from someone who was speaking with a doctor in the region who was really shocked by the amount of attention that this has gotten from the United States. And he wondered, why are we so shocked by this image? Because their bodies being pulled out of rubble all day long, every day. And this is true. And in this case, in his hometown of Aleppo, 19,000 people have been killed during the course of this war. 4,500, almost 4,600 of that 19,000 have been children. I want you to just process that for a second. And as we look at this image, I'm going to put it back on your screen. As we look at that image, realize as graphic and shell-shocked, and he's obviously in shock. He's obviously doesn't really know what's going on, and he's not even crying. And you see how terrifying this picture is, and how it brings you to tears if you just dare for a second to be empathetic and place yourself in the shoes of his family and to think, what if that was your child? If you go that far, it breaks your heart. But the reality of it is that he and his family were lucky. And as harsh as that may seem, 19,000 people in his city have been killed. 4,500 of them, 4,600 of them were children. Between 1.5 to 2 million people still live in this city that's under siege. Many have left, many have tried to escape, and leaving is not exactly the most viable option. Not only because some people don't have the resources to escape, but because of the danger, how difficult it is to escape. And to be fair to the audience, just a warning, I am going to share one image in particular that is very heart-wrenching. So if you're watching and you don't want to see it, this might be the time to cut it off. I'm just doing that because I would want that for myself. The first thing I'm going to put up is a cartoon of this young boy and the other migrant boy from Greece who died on his way trying to escape. I'm sorry, not from Greece, but he died on the shores of Greece trying to escape what was happening. So this is their choices, right? If you stay, you stand the risk of dying in a bomb attack, in a strike. And this kid survived, man. That's I hope, I just hope that they survive it all. This particular family, right? Because if you look at the numbers of people who are being killed, it's a possibility that they may have survived this one and won't survive the next one. But these are their options. They stay and they live under constant fear of death, or they risk the chance of death and try to escape. So the other image I'm going to put on the screen, I want to talk in terms of culturally here. In the United States, we have a tendency to forget really quickly the tragedies that surround us. And I think, actually, let me correct myself, not the tragedies that surround us, because if they surrounded us, maybe we would have more compassion. But we're so far removed from these tragedies that we so easily forget. But on the screen now is the boy, the little Syrian boy, 3-year-old Syrian boy who died along with other members of his family trying to escape. Let me get that off the screen. Three-year-old Alain Kurdi. And the problem is that we almost become voyeuristic in the sense that we have the ability and the freedom to observe these things from a safe distance, and we temporarily empathize and we try to identify with that pain and we speak out about it. But then, the next episode of The Walking Dead comes on and we shift gears. Or X Factor, I don't know if that's even a thing anymore. I don't really, The Voice or whatever comes on, and we quickly forget those images. And the thing that we don't have any connection to is how we as individuals are connected to this. And I'm not saying any of this as though I have a solution at all. I'm not saying any of this as though I'm less guilty of it than the next person. But I am saying this to say that the cost of war is just so high that I don't want to sully this conversation with profanity, but when you think about the cost of war, to every ambitious leader, to every person that's a religious zealot, to every person that that wants to expand their empire, for every reason we have war. I can't even finish the sentence because I don't think it's going to be appropriate to say in this context, but there's no reason valid enough for wars that kill our children. And I think that here's the problem, right? As progressives and people on the left, there are occasions where you have no choice but to go to war, right? There are occasions where you have no choice but to defend the peace. But we're growing up in a generation where war in some context is a luxury to protect the people in power. War is just a means of expanding their ambitions. Because if you at least in so many contexts, in so many examples, when have we seen a war in our lifetime that in our generation that has been about the survival? And yes, somebody's going to bring me some examples. Please do. That has been about surviving and pushing back an existential threat. But far too often we see wars that are about protecting someone's political power or protecting someone's economic power or expanding their global reach and expanding their ambitions. And this is the cost. And then those who could do something about it, we change the channel. And we see entire nations reduced to rubble. I mean, just take a minute and think. So as Americans, this speaks to American privilege that every single one of us has. We all have this American privilege that our kids, for the most part, saving some rare examples of areas that are so wrought with violence that their odds of survival are almost as slim as a child growing up in modern day Syria, like Chicago. In Chicago, your chance of being killed by a gang member is high if you live in, it's very high if you live in certain regions, certain areas, right? But saving those pockets of America that are the great exception to the rest of the American experience, we are some privileged people. And I'm looking at this kid and I'm thinking, my son was in the living room, same age, playing a video game, getting ready to go to kindergarten, and not a worry in the world. But because of the ambitions and the geopolitics of a particular nation, this young boy, in his entire youth has been war. His entire childhood to this point has been war. Hasn't had the chance to go to school. He's 5 years old. This civil war has been going on for at least his entire life. He does not have any of the luxuries that we have. And if you look at the graphic here, just a few years ago, he could have had the privilege of not growing up in a war-torn nation. But it's the ambitions of men. It's the desire to maintain power. It's the desire to expand power. It's the desire to erase groups of people that you hate. It's so many reasons that we pick up our arms and we're willing to kill somebody and to destroy an entire region. And at the end of the day, I think most of us would say it's not worth it. But then again, most of us are not in the position to make these kinds of decisions. And these kinds of decisions that are being made by a small group of people have the effect on so many millions and hell, the rest of the world. It has an effect on us. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do other than to say, no, I'm not even going to say that. All right, 857-600-0518. I will say this. let's not let the next episode of whatever we watch make us forget what's going on in another side of the world that very well could be our children. And then just think about over the last 5 years here in the United States, if we were engaged in a war here, how it would affect everything that we know. Man, we are so blessed and privileged to be able to just drive down a street without the fear of an airstrike or a drone bombing. All right. American privilege at its best. Caller, you're live on the air. Maybe I should have saved that for the end of the show, because where do we go from here? Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and/or question?
Hey Ben, it's David.
Hey David, what's on your mind, man?
It's a huge topic. So many different parts that could take hours to unpack. But you hit on a couple of things, and as above all, this is going to be gone in a couple of days. I hope not. If you look at the trends of our attention span, what we focus on social media, because that's where most people are getting. If we're lucky, this will still be a day.
Yeah.
And that's just it's like we're thrown with so many different things. It's almost we're thrown, different to every day just to be something new, so that we can't.
That's a good point.
Something specific. I don't know that that's intentional, but you could almost that way.
Yeah. Sorry, David, I'm gonna have to cut you there because your line is breaking up. But I do think I have the sentiment. Your line is breaking up pretty bad there. But I have the sentiment of what you're saying is that we get bombarded with so many different images every day, all day long. So many. If you think about it, right? So here, remember that week we went from that month we went from the Orlando shooting to the Dallas shooting to the I skipped a whole bunch. We went from the Orlando shooting to the shooting of the man in so many names I can't remember them all in Baton Rouge, and then the shooting of Philando Castile, Anton Sterling in Baton Rouge and Philando Castile, and then we went to the Dallas shooting of the 13 police officers killed, and then we went to the Baton Rouge shooting. It was like week after week after week we were bombarded with these different things that very easily become the focus of our attention, but then we have to shift gears because here's the next tragedy. And I guess with that type of news cycle, I understand the reason people call it tragedy porn, because it becomes compelling and it's something that you can't turn away from. And it's something that becomes compulsory. It becomes, it becomes a trap, and you go from one scene of disaster to the next scene of disaster, and you can't quite break away, never fully giving yourself the chance to process the first disaster. So I guess it's understandable for us to quickly change the channel, because in the back of our mind, we know the next tragedy is just right around the bend. And if we ever consider the global scale of tragedy, I don't know that we could process that. So maybe I should be fair to us and say that we barely can process the tragedies that we see in the United States. Could we possibly handle the tragedies that are going on globally? And then when you add to the equation the fact that the United States has an imprint on a lot of them, on a lot of the tragedies abroad, and those that we don't have our imprint on are just as traumatic, just as damning, just as horrific, and we get caught in 24 hours of nonstop imagery of how violent humanity can be. And I said something earlier, and I'll close this segment with this. Our humanity, we could be something so beautiful, but we so often choose to be a scourge. 857-600-0518. I still want to cover the story of talking about American privilege, the swimmer in Brazil. I might have to talk about that in the after show. A lot of callers tonight, which is great. We love to hear from you. Caller, you're live on the air. What is your name, comment, and or question?
Hey, Ben, it's Mary.
Hey, Mary, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Mary?
Mary, yeah.
Oh, Mary. Oh, one of my researchers. Mary, what's going on? What's on your mind?
I just had to call in because, this image, I saw it last night, and it really hit home. And honestly, I was glad to see that it's been getting the attention that it's been getting.
Yeah.
Because it's a necessary image that we need to see. We need to stop talking about Trump for a second and look at what's really happening under this own administration. I mean, I don't really know. I want your input on what you think we should do, because we're being fed this conversation of Trump, when in reality we're engaging in almost an illegal war with Libya and dropping bombs in an illegal war that Congress and the American people have not even had a discussion about. And then here we are, facing a Clinton presidency, which is obviously better than a Trump presidency, but then we need to be having conversations about, her Clinton Foundation and if it's going to continue with her presidency, because, a lot of these weapons that have been hurting people like the young boy that we have been looking at the image of, these weapons that are hurting these innocent people, can be traced back to the United States and can be traced into the Clinton Foundation. So I'm just wondering, what do we do and how do we keep that conversation alive?
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks for the call, Mary. Do I have the answer? No, I don't have the answer. I don't have the answer. I don't know what to tell you. Okay, I will entertain my idealism, because I know for a fact that the decision to go to war, or the impetus to go to war, is so often driven by a very small group of people. The people who are the most victimized by war outnumber them so greatly. In my dream world, every time somebody thought about going to war, well, you can fill in the rest of the blank. There are just wars and there are unjust wars. I am not a pacifist by any measure, because I do know there are occasions that some people, I think it was some theologian, some great theologian, who said that some people just need to be killed. And it was not Thomas Aquinas. It was one of the, I don't want to miscredit the person, but there are some instances where you have no choice but to go to war and to kill a threat that is threatening to kill you. I have no confusion over that reality. But saving your life and saving your society. And I'm speaking from an existential threat, not a manufactured threat, not a wagging the dog threat. This person is trying to destroy. Iraq has weapons of mass destruction. The cost is too high for us to allow our civilization, the human race, to have individuals or small groups of people who have the ability to cause so much damage because of their ambition or their agenda or their politics or their economics. That's it. All right. The last story that I have to hit with you, and I'll do the rest of the stories in overtime with the patrons. I apologize to everyone. Last story is the Department of Justice has decided to no longer fund or utilize private prisons. So the DOJ plans to end its use of private prisons. here, obviously here in the United States, and I have some data I want to pull up on the screen for you. So there's a memo that indicates that the DOJ believes that for-profit prisons are not more cost-effective and are less safe than the federally run prisons. Okay. Good. Great. Right? The wrong reason. The wrong damn reason. But I'll get to that in a second. Quote, they simply do not provide the same level of correctional services, programs, and resources. They do not save substantially on costs. And as noted in a recent report by the department's Office of Inspector General, they do not maintain the same level of safety and security, Yates wrote. Another quote, the fact of the matter is that the private prisons don't compare favorably to the Bureau of Prisons facilities in terms of safety, security, or services. And now with the decline in the federal prison population, we have both the opportunity and the responsibility to do something about that. Great. I'm happy to hear that. I even went and got an applause track for you. But that's the wrong reason, in my opinion. It's a good excuse, but the wrong reason. The federal government should not be privatizing its responsibility for corrections and rehabilitation and imprisonment of people who are dangerous to our society, period. That is one of the fundamental duties of a nation, of a state. That is a part of them maintaining the legitimate control of force within their sovereign region, right? The way they maintain their legitimate force, and this is from Max Weber, talking about one of the definitions of what control of what constitutes sovereignty, is that a nation has the control and the authority to execute and to execute force. And part of that is imprisonment. And you cannot privatize that responsibility. That's something that we should never have gone down that road. And so they're using the excuse of resources and cost efficiencies and safety and all these great. No, the bottom line is you should never have been doing this in the first place. But we're coming through an era, and hopefully we're on the opposite side of this curve where everything was about privatization, because we believe that private corporations could do a better job than the government in every capacity. But the fact of the matter is that's not only is that assumption not true, but also there are some duties that the government should never abdicate their responsibility for fulfilling, period. And this is definitely one of them. All right, so in terms of what this actually means, though, it's not the great victory that we think it is. It's not nothing, and I still have this on my damn screen. I had the caller on the live screen while I gave that great rant. Whatever. It is what it is. I think it was a great rant. Maybe not. It's not the victory that we thought. It's not nothing. It is something, but it's not everything. I'm going to pull some numbers on your screen right now. All right. This is the latest data that we had was as of 2013. Total inmates in custody in the United States, this is both on the state and federal level, it was about 2.2 million. That number has gone down since then, and this is what was indicated in the report. Since there is a decline, they're saying now is an opportunity for us to take a look at no longer using private services. If you look underneath federal prisoners, total federal prisoners in the United States is, as of 2013 was 215,000. Of those 215 total federal prisoners, only 31,000, about 32,000 were imprisoned in privately operated facilities. So a very small fraction. The rest are held in state facilities, 1.27 in total in state facilities, both private and state run. The bulk of everyone else is in the state facility or being held in a federal facility. So there's about 31,000 as of 2013. And I do believe that as of this year, 13 privately run prisons housing 22,000 inmates. So you see the decline. We went down from, hang on, let me put this back. We went down from 31,000 in 2013. Right now we're at 22,000 inmates who are held in privately run prisons. So essentially, the government will not renew its contract with these prisons. They will not terminate them immediately. So it's going to be a phasing out as each contract ends. So this is only affecting a very small portion of the total prison population that would no longer be held in private facilities. On the federal level, you still have about 3 times as much in 2013 that are going to still be held on the state level in private facilities. So these companies are still going to be doing good, right? Corrections Corporations of America, CCA, and the GO Group, they're going to be doing fine, even though today is not a good day for them. If you look at their stock, this is for Corrections Corporation of America. Today, they had a great drop around noon today, dropping from about $28 a share to $14, like basically cut in half the value. You know, a lot of people are afraid. The GO Group, very similar, down from just above $32 a share down to about $19.66 a share. So even though today is a bad day for them, and even though we feel like today is a good day for people who oppose private facilities, the reality of it is they're not going anywhere, because unless we address this on the state level, we still have an abdication of duty by our government to imprison people who are dangerous to our society and to provide correction and rehabilitation services for people who have broken the law. And there you have it. All right, folks. In the after show, I'm going to talk about the swimmer who quite literally pissed on Brazil, and I'm going to talk about the UN Haiti cholera outbreak, and I probably am going to talk about the UN story again on Monday. But no, I'm sorry. We're going to do that in the after show. So that's it for tonight. I will see you guys on Monday. And I want to take a second. Hang on before I say goodnight. Totally. Big shout out to Frank L., who in the middle of the show became a patron. Thank you, Frank. We appreciate you. I appreciate all of you. If you like the Benjamin Dixon Show and you can't become a financial contributor, go to iTunes right now and give me a review. Share the video, like, subscribe, join my email list. There's so many things that you can do to support us for free. And if you could spare $3 a month or more, become a patron. You guys have a fabulous weekend.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support the Benjamin Dixon Show. It's Ben Dixon! If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Consider becoming a Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.